I'm hinging on possibly this might just be something that Ukraine wants. And if that's the case, we need to investigate that and Ukraine. And if we find out it's Ukraine, then I wonder what the public sentiment will be then.
At a time when the IMF has just announced this $20 billion agreement with Argentina, but we haven't seen a Treasury Secretary come to Argentina since Trump's first administration, and that was for a G20. So why the emphasis from the Trump administration on Argentina?
Well, Anne Marie, a couple of reasons. The reason for being here today is today's a fulcrum day. So the Milei administration has done 3 adjustments, and this marks the beginning of the third one. So they did a large fiscal adjustment, a large monetary adjustment, and they're doing they announced on Friday a large currency adjustment. IMF has allocated $20 billion to them. The World Bank has allocated $12 billion, and I wanted to come here today to show support for President Milei and his commitment to what I think is historic in terms of bringing Argentina back from the precipice.
When it comes to the trade negotiations, I'm sure you spoke with President Milei about the 10%.
All right, so pretty much we're saying, hey, we got something worked out with Argentina, and that's fantastic. I like to hear that. Like I say, there was no plan, but seems like every day we're hearing about the plan more and more, and we're hearing more specifics about it. And I got a great video to completely break it down for y'all. All right, let's get right back into it. Make sure you guys double tap that screen and like the video. Appreciate the support.
Rate that Argentina was hit with. Do you think at some point that can come down to zero?
Look, I think we're going to start the negotiations, and just like with everyone else, I'm telling them, bring your A game. We'll see what you got, and we'll go from there.
Can any country go to zero?
We'll see. I don't know what's going to happen with the negotiations, because we've got a whole box of things we've got to overcome: tariff, non-tariff trade barriers, currency manipulation, and subsidization of labor and facilities. So there's a big menu there.
There's been an early focus on Latin America writ large from the Trump administration in the first 100 days. Is Latin America policy also?
Now, hold on, not to move off what he said, though, because now that is pretty important. Like I said, one of the reasons why we are concerned with our trade deficit with other countries is not because it's not through fair trade. Like I said, if we had fair trade between these guys where there's no import limitations and no import bans, then okay, cool. If we're in a trade deficit and it's 0 tariffs in that situation, there's no problem. Nothing we could have done. But when you guys got tariffs, trade limitation, import bans or import limitations, then you can't sit here and say that you're engaging in fair trade practices with us, and then you can't say that these trades are just from us, buying more of their product.
So, in a sense, China policy for this administration?
Well, I think that might be a good description, because what we are trying to keep from happening is what has happened on the African continent, where China has signed a number of these rapacious deals marked as aid, where they are really, they've taken mineral rights, they've added huge amounts of debt onto these countries' balance sheets. It's undisclosed to any of the other international organizations. They've got tolling arrangements. So they're guaranteeing that future generations are going to be poor and without resources. And we don't want that to happen any more than it already has in Latin America.
China has a foreign exchange swap with Argentina. Would you consider a credit line directly from the United States?
That's not under consideration in terms of, so they have an $18 billion credit swap in RMB. Argentina, under the previous Peronist government, drew down $5 billion, and that will remain outstanding. The Chinese showed very good faith effort after the announcement, or in conjunction with the IMF announcement. So that is going to be rolled forward for a year.
But do you want them to get rid of that swap with Beijing?
Well, I think as this administration continues stay the course on their economic policies, they should eventually have enough foreign exchange inflows to be able to pay that off.
So less than 2 weeks ago, you and I were.
And if you don't know what demand means by the IMF, it's the International Monetary Fund. So pretty much where all of these countries, about 191 of them, get together to discuss, well, fair trade relations and economic compatibility and all that good stuff. So it's kind of something that we've been had in order, and this is how we kind of line these countries up to do negotiation. Bring them all into one big little summit, and we're all going to negotiate. I like it.
Talking
with that, and they got like 3 different negotiators on the field.
Outside of the White House after what the president called Liberation Day. And you said you weren't part of the negotiations. Now you're leading them. What's changed in these past 12 days?
No. What I said was I didn't construct the actual
tariff rates.
The tariff rates. I've always been part of the tariff policy. I had been focusing on tax. Maybe you want to talk about that later. That's going very well. And now with the trade negotiations, I'm going to be part of that. And the president has hit a 90-day pause button, and we are moving quickly with many of our most important trading partners. So we had Vietnam in last week. We had Japanese in on Wednesday, South Korea next week. So it's going to move fast. And but the important thing for your viewers to know is we're setting up a process.
It's only Monday. Remember, this interview came out only like a few hours ago. So things are getting done pretty damn quick. And he's like, how are we going to do all these negotiations? I'm like, man, have some faith, because he's kind of lining it out. And it kind of sounds like there's actually a plan that y'all missed, that we've been trying to tell you that y'all missed. Don't worry. We're going to get into the details of this
process, and we are going to run that process. It's going to be orderly, and at the end of the day, especially for the most important trading partners, the president's going to be involved.
So when it comes to the current negotiations this week, you're also sitting down again with the Spanish negotiating team, the Japanese negotiating team, and also the Spanish economy minister?
Well, the Spanish economics minister was just a prearranged meeting. He and I have never met. So that is not a trade sit down. The Japanese meeting is a trade negotiation. The
Japanese prime minister recently said he's not going to rush to get a compromise in a negotiation. How quickly do you think you can see these deals come to fruition?
Well, again, I think there will be advantage to our allies, especially in a first mover advantage. Usually the first person who makes the deal gets the best deal. So
who do you think will be first?
It's their choice.
Is there a handful of countries that you expect to have a deal before the 90 days is up?
Oh, I think there could be numerous countries. And look, it may not be the actual trade document, but we will have an agreement in principle and be able to move forward from there.
So are we talking about a dozen or 70 plus?
I think it's going to depend, but we're going to move with all deliberate speed. And again, it's going to be a process. It's going to be USTR, who just has mountains of data that they've been collecting over the years. Because in a funny way, the tariffs are the easiest part. So a country with high tariffs, you can just say, okay, this, get rid of it. It's the non-tariff trade barriers that are more insidious, more difficult to spot.
So he's pretty much saying, like, trust me, there's going to be guys that's going to be easy to deal with, and then there's countries that are going to be easy to deal with, and there's going to be countries going to be very difficult. You know, the one that's doing the currency manipulation, import, limitations or bans. Yeah, those are going to be the tricky ones. The guys who are just, got the high tariffs, that's going to be pretty easy to deal with. Like, all right, well, we'll just both drop our stuff to zero and then we're good. That's an easy negotiation. But the guys who are doing currency manipulation, all that wild stuff, yeah, that's going to take a longer negotiation right there, because it's going to take you need to cut this shit, bro. We're going to sink your economy, okay? We're going to cut you guys off.
And it's probably going to take a little longer to exercise those demons.
When you said you weren't part of the rates in that chart that the president held in the Rose Garden, is he taking a maximalist approach? Neil Dutta recently wrote that President Donald Trump has cracked a lot of eggs, and now Scott Bessent, Treasury Secretary, needs to make an omelet. Is that how you view this situation right now?
I view not giving away negotiating secrets on worldwide television as the essence of negotiating.
You recently talked about getting deals done quickly with partners to then confront China together. When you're in these negotiations with trading partners, are you looking for them to offer up something to combat Beijing?
Well, I think combat's an aggressive word, but look, I think now that we have the China tariffs in place, that they are going to want to have some protection from Chinese goods flooding their markets. That China's business model is like from that Disney movie where the brooms are carrying the buckets. Like they're not going to stop manufacturing because the U.S. has a tariff wall up. So those goods are going to go somewhere.
Where do you think they're going to dump?
Well, I think it depends on the good. Right?
We have exemptions now, though, for electronics. So we still expect electronics to come into the United States with the smaller tariff rate, the fentanyl, 20%.
But you were asking where are they going to dump? I think it will depend on what is the good. You know, higher value-added manufacturing goods, likely in Europe, Canada, in the G7, and then kind of more of the baubles and knickknacks in the global South.
China's Commerce Ministry came out when the tariff rates were going above 100% and called it, quote, a joke. Has there been negotiations on any level between Beijing and Washington right now?
Well, look, it'll come from the top. President Trump, Chairman Xi have a very good relationship. And I wouldn't say that these are not a joke. I mean, these are big numbers. I think no one thinks they're sustainable, wants them to remain here, but it's far from a joke.
Well, they just say that the rate is so high, it's become a joke. Basically, does it just stop trade between Washington and Beijing altogether? Do you see a decoupling of these two economies?
Well, maybe the trade minister has a different sense of humor I do, but I don't see anything funny about it.
Do you see a decoupling, though, between Washington and Beijing?
There doesn't have to be. Like, there could be. There's a big deal to be done at some point. But look, what is different with China that is different in the history of trade, that normally, if you go back to the big trade deals or the currency deals in the 80s, the Plaza Accord, the Louvre Accord, the Reagan auto deals, our leading economic competitors were our military allies. China is both our biggest economic competitor and our biggest military rival. So that's going to require a special kind of formula.
Are you teasing out a
I mean, that is true. Unlike the rest of these countries, China don't rely on us for their protection. Like, we have no military alliance with China. We don't have a military base set up in China. Yeah, I mean, a lot of these countries have capitulated to us because not only they need our economy, but we protect them. Like, they feel security with our troops there, and they don't want to lose that. So, hey, here we are.
Mar-a-Lago Accord that we should be paying attention for in the future?
I'm not sure what you're talking about.
Well, potentially getting all these trading partners together to discuss fair, balanced trade?
Well, we're doing that over the next 90 days.
Okay. So shifts in tariff policies has had markets on edge. Even the president recently remarked that the bond market was, quote, queasy. Do you have a sense of who is dumping U.S. assets? Who's been dumping U.S. treasuries?
I don't think there's a dumping. And I think we saw in the tick data either today or Friday that actually foreign ownerships picked up. We had three big auctions last week, and on the longer end auction, 10-year, 30-year, we saw increased foreign competition. So I actually think this is one of those occasional VAR shocks that you get in the trading community. I think a lot of people got very leveraged, maybe out over their skis, and then you combine that with—
Honestly, once we reach all these trade deals, this is what I see coming. Because I do believe we're going to try to make some type of deal with their rare earths and minerals. And that's going to lead to, us helping ourselves out with our own manufacturing. So it could come to a point where we require less and less Chinese goods, and they're going to start to low-key leave themselves in a tough position as we low-key separate from them. Well, that's honestly not low-key. It's not low-key, but that's high-key to plan, because this is what needs to happen if they choose to keep playing this game with us.
with some real money selling, and you get these moves.
What does it say? Like the same argument I had with China. It's like, you don't think there's other countries that's waving their hand to work with America? Like, come on now.
So you don't think it's sovereigns, potentially it's hedge funds unwinding?
I have no evidence that it's sovereigns. And look, Anne Marie, not you, but the nature of journalism is to create a headline that 10 days ago, when 10-year yields hit 390, said, well, Secretary Bessent got what he wanted. He got 10-year yields down, but it's the wrong reason. Now, I forget what they hit on Friday, maybe 440 something.
We saw a 50 basis move last week in 10-year yield at the same time that the dollar was weakening nearly 3%. How do you simultaneously look at that situation? It feels like investors are dumping U.S. assets.
Well, look, I've learned that not to look at what happens over a week, right? Like, I, for better or worse, have lived through a lot of these things, and in trading, in one's personal trading history, it's the scar tissue that sticks with you the most. And I can tell you exactly where I was standing in 1998 when the long-term capital, the debacle happened. That had nothing to do with anything other than a bunch of geniuses up in Greenwich who had too much leverage.
So you're not concerned at this moment about the U.S. dollar or the U.S. Treasury losing safe haven asset?
No.
We're still a global reserve currency.
We are still a global reserve currency.
These guys cannot go anywhere else. They can't work with Japan because Japan wants to sell more than they want to buy. So that's not going to help their economy. And we're their biggest buyer. A lot of these countries, most of them, I'm going to be honest, F it, all of them, we are their biggest consumer, okay? They cannot live without the American consumer economy. I don't know why they're trying to spread propaganda saying that they can, saying that they're about to go work with these guys, work behind our backs and all that good stuff, because, we'll put a high tariff on you and you still won't be able to get into this economy. And all these other countries that claim that they can replace America, you can't. And they know it. Y'all know it. So stop fear mongering. Like, you're going to end up destroying y'all countries doing that dumb stuff.
We have a strong dollar policy. The dollar can go up and down. If you go and look back at President Trump's first term, I don't remember the exact number, but the dollar in 2017 went down, I can't remember, 7, 8, 9%. And then once the tax bill was done, took off for the remainder of his term.
Have you spoken to the Fed at all about contingency plans, though, if financial stability risks flare up?
Chair Powell and I have breakfast every week, and we discuss a wide range of things. And our staffs are always in contact. We have a markets room, they have a markets room, but and specifically, did we discuss some kind of a break the glass? I think we're a long way from that.
So when was the last time you guys spoke? You had breakfast last week?
We had breakfast last week, and it was an away game. I was over at the Fed.
And no concern so far from the Fed chair and what he saw in the Treasury market?
I think we would have heard from the Fed chair. I think we heard from Governor Collins of Boston on Friday. We heard from Governor Weller today on his thoughts on what tariffs mean. So seems like business as usual. When
it comes to the Fed chair, his term is up May 2026. Mm-hmm. So we're almost 12 months out from that. When are you going to start to think about, have these discussions with the president about who should lead the Fed? Well, we think about it all the time. I think when are we going to start the interviewing candidates? And that'll be sometime in the fall. In the fall, so about 6 months lead time. Yep. Yeah. The U.S. Supreme Court recently came out.
Yeah, put somebody in there that we can trust a little bit better, because the current guy in the Fed, I don't know about him. To be honest with you.
With the ruling that the executive branch, the president for now, could oust top.
Honestly, the Fed altogether is just one big and honest mistake. It was a mistake. The Federal Reserve was a mistake. I'll just say it right here and now. It was not the best thing for America.
Officials at independent agencies. And that has some individuals in the market a little bit concerned about what this could mean for the independence of the Fed, which is really a cherished pillar of wanting to invest in America. Do you have any concern about potentially President Trump ousting Fed Chair Jay Powell or the independence of the Fed?
Well, and Marie, I've repeatedly said the Fed has two duties. And I believe that monetary policy is a jewel box that's got to be preserved. And then they have regulatory policies. And I think we can have more of a discussion because the Fed is one among three bank regulators. And there's the Fed, controller of the currency and the FDIC. So I think it's very easy to delineate between those two.
So at the moment, no concern?
No concern.
When you talk to Fed Chair Jay Powell, at the moment, it doesn't sound like they feel like the need to step in on this unraveling we saw last week with the bond market. Does the Treasury have any plans to do something if this was to become more unnerving?
Well, look, the Treasury has lots of things we can do. And but again, I think we're a long way from that. But
all options would be on the table?
Sure. But again, we have a big toolkit that we can roll out. We do regular off-the-run buybacks. We could up the buybacks if we wanted. So,
just finally, I want to get your thoughts on something you told me, John, and Lisa in February, which was that in your old world, you would be that person with your ear against the door, trying to understand what policymakers were doing, so then you could predict where financial markets would go. In this moment where we hear from top executives constantly, today it was the Goldman Sachs CEO, last week it was JD Dimon, and this uncertainty, especially around tariff policy, what advice would you be giving to your old self?
To look at the whole policy, because, again, not you, but others in the media can pick one factor. So right now it's tariff, but we have, you mentioned we have tax coming up. We have deregulation.
And shout out to my man Zoloff. He says, all these mods, and I'm the only one that liked. Yeah, make sure y'all guys double tap the screen and like the video, guys. And we're going to be carrying on that 30 super chats to open up this call-in line. Y'all did about 10 last year. About 10 last stream. So if we can get 20 more, I'll go ahead and open up that call-in line, guys.
So it's a mini the leg stool, and I would try to think about what's happening. The tariff sequencing was always going to be first. The tax bill is going very well, and I think I've been pleasantly surprised at how quickly that's moving along. And then deregulation from our area on the financial side and in the rest of the economy, that takes a little longer, but that will start kicking in September, October, in the fall, and those are going to be very powerful.
I believe you described as a three-leg tool, and right now everyone is focused on one part of that leg, and that's the tariffs, as you say. But when it comes to the tax cuts, right now what the market is expecting and what could get done in Congress based on how slim the majority is for the Republicans is just an extension of current policy.
I think that's wrong. I think that the underreported story in the media, the story that's fun to report, doesn't get reported enough, is the Democratic chaos, but the underreported story is the remarkable Republican unity led by President Trump. Speaker Johnson, on first try, got instructions out of the House for the budget. He passed a clean CR first try.
We're 18 super chats away from opening up the call-in line. I appreciate the support. And if you got any questions, thoughts, jokes, or disagreements, I'll be happy to read it out loud and engage with it. Appreciate the support, guys. And make sure we double tap that screen. Let's get more people in on the conversation.
Leader Thune pinged it back to the House very quickly with their instructions. And I had something along with Kevin Hassett, had an NEC chair called the Big Six, which also includes Leader Thune, Speaker Johnson, Senator Crapo, Committee Chair Jason Smith. And everyone's very aligned, and there's going to be a lot more bells and whistles other than just changing the date on TCJA.
So your pitch right now to financial market participants, to consumers, is you need to see the entire picture.
You need to see.
Well, I've been preaching that though, but these guys want to go by the market day by day, and I be telling them like, bro, you're looking at it in quarters, so 3 months. Have some patience.
The entire picture, and
I have patience for Biden, so give Trump the same grace y'all show Biden and sit down. Okay, calm down. You guys will be okay.
As President Trump said the other day, stay cool. It was my message when I was out with you on April 2nd. It was to the countries. These are maximum rates. So you ask if it was a maximal strategy. If you don't elevate, this is your maximum rate. So don't elevate. You have, in markets, the upside barrier. You don't have unlimited risk. And then come to us and we will negotiate in good faith.
Can you guarantee clarity in 90 days?
I think clarity is through the eye of the beholder, but I can guarantee you that we're going to run a robust process. And I think the market can take great comfort in that.
So maybe some of that uncertainty starting to evaporate.
Yeah, if we measure uncertainty by the VIX, I think that the VIX, I don't want to make market calls, but I think that the VIX spiked and is likely peaked.
All right, now let's get on to our man, well, Steve Miller, going off once again on this whole, we sent the citizen back. Now, this man is once again, he spends, what would it, like 5 minutes laying into it during the meeting with the El Salvador president. Then he spent the 16, actually really 20 minutes laying in on Forbes about it, like pretty much laying in on the press. Like, do you guys even understand what y'all talking about? Like, this man low-key grilled the whole entire press. And now he's about to spend probably another